Welcome to this episode of Heal Your Past, Master Your Future. My name's Tracy Malone and I am so glad that you are here. As most of you already know, I'm a somatic trauma coach. I work with people to help them heal their trauma from their body. You've probably heard me mention in previous episodes about polyvagal theory, and I wanted to do a series just on polyvagal theory because understanding this is going to bring you so much awareness in your own body and in the bodies of those around you. I started my studies 15 years ago, and for the last 5 years intensely, I've been helping people to heal the trauma that is in their body. And then at the end of last year, I was guided very strongly towards learning polyvagal theory. And once I learned this theory, it really changed so much of what I was able to do with clients. I was already doing great work clearing trauma from their bodies, but now I could go to an even greater depth now that I understand polyvagal theory. And a big part of polyvagal theory, it's not me using it as such, and it's not me understanding it as such, it's me educating. Every client of mine who comes in learns polyvagal theory, and you become a master of your own nervous system. So I do an enormous amount of education as well with my clients. Polyvagal theory really creates a foundation for all healing work. It is a key to healing trauma, in my personal and professional opinion. Polyvagal theory was developed by a man named Stephen Porges. We used to believe that the autonomic nervous system had two branches and that was it. We had rest and digest, the parasympathetic nervous system, and then we had fight and flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And we really thought that the body was moving between those two states at any one time. So we used to believe we were either rest or digest, or we were in stress, fight or flight. And that was all that we believed was available to us through our nervous systems. And even when I was helping people heal trauma in their bodies, when I was explaining the nervous system, when I had the understanding of the two branches, there was no place for trauma. There's no place for trauma in rest and digest, and there's no place for trauma in fight and flight. I often wondered, well, where does freeze, fawn, and dissociate live? And that's where polyvagal theory comes in. In polyvagal theory, we know we've actually got three branches of the nervous system. We have a branch that is the parasympathetic branch, and it is governed by the vagus nerve, and it is called the ventral vagal state. It is rest and digest. It is where safety lives. Then we have the branch that is the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, and that is absolutely fight or flight. The ventral vagal state of the parasympathetic nervous system, imagine that as the top step and the green light. And if you imagine your sympathetic response or fight or flight as the next step of your nervous system, so the second step, it's down one step from the green light of the ventral vagal. Sympathetic is the orange light. It is get ready to mobilize. We need to take all the stress in our system and we need to mobilize it in order to build our sympathetic pathway. Stephen Porges actually happened across polyvagal theory. He was working with premature babies and he was wondering, why does this premature baby not make it and die, and why does this premature baby thrive and go on to live a normal life? And what he found, the difference in those two babies, was heart rate variability. And what heart rate variability is when they were breathing in, the heart rate is meant to go up, and when they breathe out, the heart rate goes down. In the babies that thrived, they had a great variability. When they breathed in, their heart rate went up really well, and when they breathed out, their heart rate went down really well. In the babies that did not thrive and some that did not make it, they had a low heart rate variability. So when they breathed in, their heart rate barely went up, and when they breathed out, their heart rate barely went down. And maybe their heart rate just stayed the same when they were breathing. And so Porges looked more deeply into that and said, well, if that is the key indicator of survival and thriving to death and not thriving and barely surviving, what makes the heart rate go up and down. And what he found was that it was the vagus nerve that did this. And the vagus nerve was the key because the vagus nerve, when it was well toned, had great heart rate variability. And when it had low tone, it had low heart rate variability. So that's where he found out polyvagal means more than two. It means many. And so he coined the term polyvagal theory because the vagus nerve does not just govern rest and digest in the parasympathetic branch of the nervous system, that green light. It also governs the third step of the nervous system. So the top step again is ventral vagal green light. Middle step is the orange light of mobilization, activation of stress through the sympathetic pathway. And then if we go down another step to the third step, we have the red light of the system where the body was not able to mobilize its stress, and we have freeze, fawn, dissociate. This is what we call dorsal vagal, the red light, the stop sign. The body was not able to mobilize and move all of the stress that was there, so it collapsed and down regulated into dorsal vagal. So ventral vagal and dorsal vagal are both governed by the vagus nerve. And that's important because when we have a high tone in our vagus nerve, we can spend more time up in the green light of ventral vagal. And when we have low tone, we spend more time collapsing and down regulating in dorsal vagal. The great news is that with some somatic practices and exercises, you can learn to build your pathways, build your vagus nerve so that when your body upregulates out of dorsal vagal and it steps onto your sympathetic platform, you've got a large enough platform there for your body to then upregulate with that strong and toned vagus nerve back up to ventral vagal. So you can spend more time in safety, rest and digest, and connection. What's really interesting about the vagus nerve is that in Latin, vagus nerve means the wanderer. The vagus nerve governs rest and digest, safety. It also governs our want and need to socialize and connect with others. So if you're somebody who likes to isolate yourself, to feel your feelings, if you don't like socializing, if you see yourself as an introvert, the chances of you having low vagal tone are very high. Empaths more than likely have a low vagal tone because empaths, a lot of us, I am definitely an empath and an introvert. And it's really interesting to see my behaviors and my needs change as I build the tone in my vagus nerve. I feel like connecting with other people more. I feel at ease in large crowds of people. And often I don't need to fawn and be the people pleaser and the empath. When I can feel what other people need, I don't necessarily jump straight into making them feel better all the time. I'm not sure I can get across to you in one podcast really how important vagus nerve tone is. If your body is in sympathetic stress response and you take supplements or you eat a really healthy meal, if your body's not in rest or digest, you do not have the pathway activated for your body to actually absorb those nutrients. If your body is down in dorsal vagal, shut down, then it's really hard for you to actually get anything done. You know in your mind what it is that you need to do. You are very capable of doing the thing that your mind is telling you that is quite easy to do, but your body actually doesn't have the ability to do the thing. And that's because it's down in dorsal vagal. When you're in dorsal vagal, the best thing you can do initially is meet yourself there. I'll go more into that in the podcast that will be specifically about dorsal vagal. And I don't want you to see dorsal vagal as a bad thing. Dorsal vagal is perfect because it has helped us survive until now. There's so much power in understanding these 3 steps of the nervous system. So basically, what my body is wired to do is that if I am cruising along in my day, I'm in my workplace, I'm doing my things, maybe I'm leading my team, and something happens to give me a stress response. My body goes into fight or flight. And that may be too many requests for the day. It may be somebody in the workplace is a little bit toxic and trying to dominate me. And it might be something somebody says that reminds me of a threat from my childhood. So my body naturally leaves the ventral vagal green state and it goes into the sympathetic state. If you are somebody that has high cortisol, that's overstressed, if you go to sleep at night but toss and turn all night, this is the state that you're spending more time in. Our bodies always naturally go into this sympathetic stress state. I've had some kind of a threat. Now, a healthy and toned nervous system with a toned vagus nerve will, within this space, just go, it's okay, it's only an email. Or it's okay, yep, it's another thing. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a walk, I'm going to take a break, I'm going to do some breathing, I'm going to tone my vagus nerve. I'm going to reconnect and awaken and activate my vagus nerve right now. And then I can tell myself, it's okay. It was an email. Yes, that person is dominating, but I can hold my own in this conversation and I can speak my needs, whether or not they're met. And if I have a strong vagus nerve tone, I will mobilize that stress somehow. I will activate my vagus nerve. I will initiate fight or flight. I will take the energy of fight or flight that has entered my system, the cortisol that's entered my system through activating my sympathetic stress state. Maybe I'll stand up and go for a walk. Maybe I'll do some deep breaths. Maybe I'll walk while taking some deep breaths. Movement is great. If you see this middle step as stress and fear with mobilization, then you'll understand it more. It needs movement. If you are unable to mobilize the stress in the middle stage, your body doesn't have a choice other than to downregulate. Think of all the energy that you build in your body in a stress state. It's a lot. And we'll do an extreme case here. This reminds me of a story from my childhood when this man who was in his 60s drove past a car accident. A friend of mine was in a car accident and her car had flipped over. And this 60-year-old man with really bad knees was able to lift the car and right the car himself. Had he tried to do that 3 hours later, he wouldn't have been able to do it. Had he tried to do it the next day or any day for the rest of his life, he would not have been able to do it. Why can people find that amount of strength in those moments? It's because their sympathetic state has been activated. They have gone into fight or flight. Adrenaline floods through our body and it gets us ready to do what it is we need to do, fight or flight. So think about the amount of energy. If you can put a shape to the energy and a size to the energy that happens when you enter fight or flight, if you do not mobilize that energy, it gets locked into your nervous system. This is why people go into shock after they have big frights, because they weren't able to mobilize, they weren't able to fight, and they weren't able to flee. Their body was ready to activate and mobilize, and they didn't mobilize, so they can go into shock after big events if they weren't able to mobilize. So all of that energy that happens when you go into fight or flight, imagine that now getting squished and jammed and tucked into something the size of a little ball. And then it gets locked into your nervous system somewhere in your body. And then your body downregulates into dorsal vagal. Shut down, fawn, freeze, dissociate. Why do we shut down, fawn, freeze, and dissociate? Because we have not dispelled the stress energy, so our body does not understand that we are actually safe now. Because we've given it no indication. It's like we haven't fought and we haven't run, therefore the threat must be still in front of us. We haven't been able to flee, so we will shut down and we will become small. We will freeze, we will say nothing and hope they go away. We will fawn, I will make you feel better so that I can have the safety and get out of here as soon as possible. And I will dissociate. If none of those things are working and I'm still not okay, I will literally leave my body and leave my body here to deal with the thing. This is why so many people do not have memory of traumatic experiences, because they dissociated at that point in time. It's a lot, isn't it? Now that ball that's tucked itself down into your nervous system when you've gone down into dorsal vagal, unless you've mobilized it since that event that's happened, no matter what that event was, big or small, it's still in your body. And that's why, as a somatic trauma coach, I am trained and I support people to actually start mobilizing those little balls and allowing them to complete their cycle and release from the body. A regulated nervous system is one that's doing what it needs to do. There is so much I see in social media these days where people are talking about a regulated nervous system, and that means a calm nervous system. And that is simply not true in polyvagal theory. A regulated nervous system in polyvagal theory is one that is doing what it needs to do and meeting itself where it is at. It doesn't mean a regulated nervous system is only ventral vagal and that's it. A regulated nervous system is one that when you drop into sympathetic state, into your fight or flight, you are able to activate and mobilize that. So if you are feeling anger and you need to fight with somebody and have your say, you can learn to do this in a safe way. It does not need to be aggressive and domineering. Then you are activating and mobilizing your fight response. If you can say to somebody, I actually need a break right now and I need to go for a walk. I've got a little bit too much energy in my system and I'll be back in 5 minutes. Can we continue this then? That is activating your sympathetic pathway. It is mobilizing and it is bringing you back into the moment so that then you can leave your sympathetic nervous system and return to ventral vagal green. If your sympathetic pathway is activated and you mobilize it, crying, releasing anger, stored things from the past, if you are feeling and expressing the emotions that you're feeling, you have a perfectly regulated nervous system. If you're feeling like you're sad and needing to cry or really angry and wanting to burst and you're telling yourself, no, we're not going to get angry, no, we're not going to cry, no, we're not going to show this emotion, then you're asking your body to leave the sympathetic state and go down into dorsal vagal. Sometimes if you are in a corporate situation and it is not okay or safe for you to mobilize in that moment, you can actually tell your body, we can't yell and scream right now. We're going to take some deep breaths right now and then I will mobilize later. And then when you get home and you are in a safe environment, you can then express all of the big energy and feelings that were coming into your body. You can express them and then you can complete the sympathetic cycle so that your body can return back to ventral vagal. What I'm really hoping that you'll understand about this episode is that your body's doing exactly what it needs to survive. You've been in situations where it is not safe for you to mobilize your stress, so thank the creation of our nervous system for having dorsal vagal available to us. If we did not have this third step of the nervous system available to us, we would not be here today, most of us. Because as children, we were taught to not cry, to not speak up, to not have a voice, to not throw a tantrum, to not do a whole bunch of things. Emotions weren't available to us and emotional expression wasn't available to us. So without the third step of the nervous system and dorsal vagal, we would not be here today. So do not see dorsal vagal as a bad thing. See dorsal vagal as a beautiful, safe, protective part of the nervous system. And the more that you understand the nervous system and the more you work to build the tone of your vagus nerve, the more you'll come to love dorsal vagal and you'll learn that it's safe now for you to start mobilizing and expressing what is being trapped in dorsal vagal in your nervous system so that you can build your pathway back to safety. If you're somebody who works as a leader in the corporate world, you can actually start recognizing the states of each of your staff members and where you think they are on the polyvagal ladder. And the best way to do that is to understand your own nervous system first. Understand yourself and when you're moving through those three states. And the more that you can mobilize your own stress, the more you're role modeling that you are a safe person. Safe leaders and great leaders are those who have an understanding and knowledge of their nervous system and who have worked to spend as much time as possible in ventral vagal, who have toned vagus nerve, and that creates safety within a workplace. Ventral vagal is at the top of the polyvagal ladder for the nervous system. And if you think about an organizational chart, leaders sit at the top of an organizational chart. So imagine if the top of that organizational chart was actually in dorsal vagal most of the time or stress sympathetic response most of the time. How do you think that then feeds down into your teams? Understanding polyvagal theory is revolutionary for the corporate world. It is revolutionary for every industry, in my opinion. In the corporate world, it can make massive changes to how it is that you can support and lead your teams. Maybe you're a solopreneur and maybe you have a service-based industry. Imagine how it is that you can attract clients in and deliver to your clients when your body is in ventral vagal. And not only that, what if you could help them understand their own nervous system? If you are a coach or a therapist of some kind or a healer of some kind and you start understanding polyvagal theory, what that can do for your clients. The most important thing to understand about toning your vagus nerve, that I really hope that you can understand and get this, you do not need a gym membership. You do not need an hour a day. It really is about interoception, about understanding and creating a deep relationship with your body and then building tone in your vagus nerve so that you can start completing the cycle of the stress that's held in your body and spend more time up in ventral vagal safety green light zone. This is not an inherent trait that you are born with. You can learn this in as little as 3 to 5 minutes a day. That's what I love about the vagus nerve and these practices, that you already have everything that you need within your body to heal yourself. I kid you not. You're going to see more and more about the vagus nerve coming into the world now because so many therapists, coaches, and somatic coaches like me understand the importance of the vagus nerve to do with absolutely everything. And this is a skill that can be developed. So we've had a look today into the polyvagal theory. What I'm going to do in the next episode is I'm going to spend time talking about the ventral vagal state itself. We're going to look at the top step, that green light ventral vagal state, and we're going to go deeper into what it is and what it governs. If you are ready to start healing your vagus nerve, there are many ways that we can connect. I have a course and it's called Release, a 6-week journey to let go of tension and trauma from your body. By week 6, you're going to have a beautiful set of exercises that you can do daily to help you build tone in your vagus nerve and help you to really release trauma from your body. If you're somebody in the corporate world that leads teams, or if you're a coach or service provider and you want to know more about polyvagal theory, I actually have a course where I train people in polyvagal theory and somatic awareness, where you can learn about it in depth. This one is for the educators, people who really want to understand it on a deep level and teach it to others at the level that I'm able to do now. There are more details for that course on my website. So you'll find me on socials at XO Tracy Malone. You'll find my website, traceymalone.co. And I look forward to hearing from you if you would like to go more deeply into polyvagal theory. And I'll see you when you tune in to next week when we talk more in depth about ventral vagal. See you then.